It's a lock. That's a direct quote from a college football reporter. Is Utah finally getting what it wants? This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. It's a lock. That was the quote given about Utah to the Big Ten and sources around that conference liking the school. Interesting. Will it actually happen? TJ Pittenger of College Football Addiction joins the show to break it all down. Then the College Football Playoff Committee just mentioned utilizing TV ratings to decide who goes to the playoff. That's what ESPN does to get the SEC where it wants them. And then Deion Sanders calls out an ACC school directly for tampering with his football program. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. Let's get into it.
Utah, a perfect fit for the Big Ten. Are we going back down this road again?
So this is crazy. Jim Williams, he's a reporter who follows expansion more than anything at this point, and he is nails when it comes to reporting on things like this, has posted on Twitter, Happy Easter to all. This week, he spoke to 3 Big Ten officials who are part of the vetting team who look into possible new members. He says, to sum up what they told me, there's a great deal to like about Utah football, and we feel they would be a good fit, but they are a lock. There is a world now, according to sources, from Jim Williams to other random YouTubers to reporters to fake reporters to the fake news to the burners, there is enough here where there's smoke, there's fire to understand that Big Ten officials are probably actually eyeing Utah to go to their league. And the quote here from Jim Williams of "it's a lock" is not something that I necessarily agree with. I don't have sources in the trenches, though. I say it all the time to my listeners on my show that I will never once come to the table and say my sources, these sources. I don't have them. I don't want them. I want to react. And when someone who has an inside look into the Big Ten, an inside look into expansion, into realignment, says that Utah to another conference is very possible, I'm at least going to talk about the possibility of it happening and how the Utes could get there. It seems as though the administration, Mark Harlan, would want to make a move like that because of the money, and it would be the Big Ten saying yes, not Utah saying no to the possibility of having a merger moving forward. Utah fans wouldn't be shocked by this. I'm pretty shocked by this. I don't foresee it happening very soon, but according to some sources, it's a lock.
I guess the big question here would be, I asked you this last week, so I'm going to ask it again. Do you feel like there are still other pieces that need to happen, whether it's Florida State, UNC, Virginia, some of the other, Clemson? I don't think Notre Dame's super close, but obviously their name gets tossed around too. Do you feel like this could happen before any of those chess pieces move, or is this kind of a secondary move is maybe the best way to ask it?
Yeah, there's no way this is the marquee school for the Big Ten, with Florida State and Clemson being in limbo, with Miami and North Carolina having issues with the ACC in the future of that conference. Utah, newsflash, you finished 11th in football, 14th in men's basketball, you're last in baseball. What can you bring? What can you bring that the Big Ten does not hit? Well, the Salt Lake City market. Okay, they have LA. They have Seattle. They just added expansion teams that brought them the larger markets that they wanted to combat a Columbus, Ohio, or an East Lansing, Michigan. Now, why would they need Salt Lake City? There's not a reason there. And for Utah, you have the AAU status, but so does like a Baylor, right? There are plenty of AAU schools at this point. And the revenue that Utah has brought in, it wasn't there this year because they were bad at football. They were bad at men's basketball. They didn't have a leg to stand on in the Big 12 conference. So why would the Big 10, that values itself more than the Big 12, want to take a risk like that? They wouldn't do it unless there's a package with it, or if Utah, and we can get into this, and I'm sure we will, took less of a share. I mean, from your chair, TJ, you've been covering the expansion realignment news for the last 3-4 years as this cycle relays every year. Utah couldn't take a full share in the Big Ten. There's really no way, right?
Well, I mean, they would take it. I just don't think it would be offered to them, right?
Yeah, Utah would take it. There's no way they could get there with a full share.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing to me, right? Is if Oregon, and Oregon was in a little bit more of a desperate situation because they were still in the Pac-12 at that time when it was alive, and they had to go somewhere. So maybe they're, but maybe their back was up against the wall a bit. But my thought is that if they didn't offer Oregon a full share, right? And I'm not trying to crap on Utah or anything like that. Like, that's not my point. I mean, there are Florida State fans that are saying, dude, I'd take a 75% share right now to the Big Ten and not even think twice about it. And so if a Florida State would potentially be open to a less than 1 share, if an Oregon who has competed for national championships, right, and been in the playoff multiple times, if they're good with a partial share, there's no way that Utah would go in thinking they could get it. I mean, I'd be even surprised that a half share feels like the absolute pinnacle, the absolute best they could get. But I mean, would you even be shocked if it was like 33%? And we saw SMU go to the ACC for 0. And I'm not saying that's what Utah would do, but if you're the Big Ten looking to add teams and you got to bring in a Miami at a 75, 100% share, or you could take Utah at 33, 25, somewhere in there. And I'm not saying I'm not Jim Williams, right? I don't have the insight. I don't have the inside sources on what these Big Ten folks are saying. But I think if you're the Big Ten, you at least do look at that and say, like, Miami at 75, Utah at 25, like, maybe we have something here. So, but yeah, I'd be shocked if they were offered a full share. Even again, a half share feels like the absolute max. You gave Oregon a half share.
Yeah.
Is Utah fitting the same bill? And again, this is not to crap on Utah. I know a lot of Big 12 fans. I'm just kind of giving you my thoughts. Is Utah worthy of the same share that Oregon just got? I don't know.
Well, the question was posed on another podcast, and I wish I remembered the name of it. Why are they looking at Utah and not BYU? And that's a real thing that has to be considered in this expansion talk, is that now BYU, with the resources of a Power 4 conference, has started to overshadow Utah. Utah fans want to push back about that and say, oh, well, historically, we've dominated BYU. Yeah, but we're talking about today. Recency bias is really the only bias when it comes to expansion and realignment. What have you done for me lately? There's a reason Washington was so enticing. They were going to the national championship. They were elevated at football. The Big Ten wanted that. USC, UCLA, hand over fist, they make money because they're in Los Angeles. And now BYU has raised millions of dollars. They're paying a basketball player $3.5 million, who's not even a top 25 returning player in the country, just for him to come do a little hoops in Provo. How are they not more enticing? They have a religion tied to what they do. They're the flagship university of one of the fastest growing faiths in the world. So their NIL, they're good. Their football was exponentially better than Utah last year, winning 11 games. Their men's basketball is one of the top in the Big 12, ended up going to having a run in the NCAA tournament to the Sweet 16. So why would the Big Ten look at Utah as a more valuable school than that? Again, this is not to just pile on for Utah, but there's another university 40 minutes down the road that's doing everything right currently. So the Big Ten should look there first. I don't know why they would need Utah or what Utah would do to be a world beater in the conference. They might just be another Maryland. They might just be another Illinois. Illinois is good at men's basketball. They're a big state school, but does the Big Ten really need Indiana, especially when football is not good? I don't know. Utah might just be another version of that.
I want to ask big picture about the Big 12. If something like this was to happen, if you're watching this, do us a favor and hit the subscribe button. It's the best way to support the channel that you're watching at this moment. But is there a concern that the Big 12 could have other teams jump out too? Like, could the ACC go after like a UCF, which maybe makes a little bit more sense geographically? Could the Big 10 go after, I don't know, a team in Texas like Texas Tech, who certainly is going to pony up the resources to compete on a national level, it seems, with their NIL? I'm not trying to mention other names. Kansas, could they be a target for the SEC with their basketball prowess as the conference there continues to try and dominate that landscape? Like, is there a concern at all that if Utah was to go, if maybe BYU is considered, like you just kind of mentioned, that other teams could kind of get cherry picked off too?
I don't think so. And it's kind of a mundane, stupid answer, but I don't foresee right now the Big 12's individual teams having enough star power and enough security financially for the Big Ten to need them, for the SEC to need them. I think that need word is very special in this conversation. Brett Yormark talks about we'll advance, we'll add new teams when we need them. I think the ACC, that they need whatever they can get, but that spot of desperation is not going to be enticing for a UCF, for a West Virginia. I think the Big 12 has an upper hand in adding a Pitt more so than the ACC does, adding the Mountaineers. So I don't, even if Utah pushes the needle with this, moves on to the Big 10, I'm not sure if there's another Big 12 team, at least from what they voice in their athletic departments, that would target a move. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is exactly where I go with the NBA playoffs on right now to get the lowest prices guaranteed on those NBA playoff tickets. Game Time makes things easy, especially with the seat view and the toggled feature where you have no hidden fees at the end. They just show you up front the price of the ticket that you'll pay at checkout. If you download the Game Time app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege, you get $20 off your first purchase. That's right, $20 off your first purchase with Game Time with the code LOCKEDONCollege. Terms apply. You create that account, though, and you get last-minute deals, saving up to 60% off last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, and that is guaranteed.
Speaking of ruining college football, ESPN is doing their darndest to try and make that happen. A report dropped today from Heather Dinich, which is hilarious, and I've got some thoughts around report about some different avenues of picking potential playoff teams. Let's talk about this a little, Drake.
Yeah, so Heather Dinich releases this, and there've been plenty of articles posted by local and national news outlets. One of my favorite here that explained it was Heartland College Sports, saying the college football playoff appears hell-bent on destroying the sport. So one of the quotes that Dinich gave, Bill Connolly tweeted this out, actually kind of exposed that, which is funny that Bill Connolly, who is with ESPN, would call it out, but he says, one possibility, the quote from Dinich, which could be viewed as a compromise, is having conferences earn automatic bids through their play each season, a model in which each Power Four league, so to kind of break it down line by line here, that first mention is at the end of the year, you get X amount of automatic bids through your play that year. So it becomes a subjective thing on who gets how many automatic bids when the playoff committee meets to determine the field. A model in which each Power Four league can earn guaranteed spots through a combination of its team's overall records, and here it comes, and maybe even TV ratings, according to a source, could be presented. The highest ranked conferences would earn the most automatic bids. There it is. They're done lying to you. They're done hiding it. They're done keeping you in the dark with this and making you assume that it's all based on money, that it's all based on power and prowess. It's not based on wins themselves. They're done having you believe this conspiracy theory that it might just be about ESPN's brokering money based on TV ratings that determines who makes the college football playoff. Now, instead of having you assume that, they're just telling you that. They're just telling you outright, hey, we don't really care about your wins. We don't really care about strength of schedule, the body of work, about the ranking next to your name. We care about the name itself. We care about your affiliation with the SEC, your affiliation at the top of the Big Ten, your affiliation with major TV networks in the country. The biggest TV network in this conversation is ESPN. They are the ones paying for the college football playoff rights. They are the ones paying big money to keep the SEC alive and well and keep the SEC thriving. And now they're telling you the best way they can rig this is to just have TV ratings, their own ratings, where they pump up SEC teams, determine who goes to the college football playoff. So now the SEC has 5 auto bids. The Big 12 has 1. So that 11 or 12 win Big 12 team gets left out because the 5th best team in the SEC, who went 9-3, gets an automatic bid. Not because they won a lot of games, not because they looked good doing it. They still lost to 6-6 Vanderbilt and 5-7 Oklahoma or whoever. That team gets in because their TV ratings were good, because they played on College Game Day 3 times during the afternoon, TJ. That's what ESPN's telling us right now.
You want to know who had better TV ratings than both of the teams in the Big 12 championship this year? Do you just want me to let you know?
Is it like the Arkansas Razorbacks?
2-10 Florida State.
2-10 Florida
had better ratings. And that's not I love Dilly. I'm so glad. I'm thrilled they won. I actually like Matt Campbell a lot. Rocco Becht is a ton of fun. I was super thrilled when they won the Pop-Tart Bowl against our big rivals. That's not a dig at either one of those teams. But Florida State went 2-10 and I'm not suggesting at all that they would put a 2-10 Florida State in because of their TV ratings. You want to know who had the best?
Well, TJ, they wouldn't not put 2-10 Florida State in. Just don't say that yet.
Well, you know who had the best ratings in the ACC? Georgia Tech, because they got the benefit of playing Florida State in a standalone game in Dublin. They got the benefit of playing Miami when Miami was undefeated at the time. And they got the benefit of playing Georgia Tech on a Friday night in another standalone game when nothing else was being played. And so purely the reasoning that Georgia Tech, who I think is on the upswing, like Georgia Tech fans will get upset about this, but the only reason they had the number one ratings in the ACC this year is because of a down Florida State, a Miami that fell off late, and getting to play Florida State and Georgia to bookend their seasons in standalone spots. We're literally saying that scheduling could have had an impact on who goes to the playoff because of TV ratings. And that's me probably somewhat being bullish on the fact that they would ever give any kind of credence to the ACC at all. We know who this benefits. This benefits the SEC, who by and large part has phenomenal ratings because of getting the better TV slots, like I just talked about, scheduling. The Big Ten with Big Noon. There has not been a Big Noon game that didn't carry the 12 p.m. window of college football on Saturdays. And so this is just more and more to benefit the top two. Now, I do have a couple of thoughts on this and want to get your take. I don't think that this is legitimate. I think this is one of those things that they put into coordinated reports. I saw a tweet from Genetics56 on Twitter that said the Athletic report and the ESPN report are almost identical, so you can always tell when two reports come out from competing sites that are nearly identical. It is literally just propaganda being fed out to the masses. My take on this, and I hope that I'm right, is that this is like those rule changes that are proposed every year, that you always throw in one rule change that's absolutely preposterous to make everybody freak out and say like, no, this can never happen. And they know they're not going to get away with it. They know they're just going to toss that one out, but they get everything else they wanted, right? Everybody's so focused on this TV situation, these ratings, they know that people are not going to go for this, right? They know that that's not what's going to end up happening. But if they throw it in right now, they'll get idiots like me and you to talk about it for 30 minutes on a Monday afternoon, and they'll slide in everything else they want on the back end. And people say, well, see, we saved the sanctity of college football. We saved college football because we got them to take that TV ratings line out. Guess what, bro? The College Football Playoff Committee has no guidelines. They can use TV ratings all they want. They just don't have to tell us. And they often do. What did they do 2 years ago when Florida State was it? Well, that ain't going to be a good game because their quarterback's out. Let's put Bama in. Let's put the team that will give us really good ratings in the Rose Bowl against Michigan. Why would we put in a team with a hobbled quarterback? Yeah, let's roll with this. So I think they'll eventually take this out. But are they still doing it on the back end? Probably.
Yeah, that's a great point that you make, TJ, on the fact that the brand has always been considered. The brand is always in college basketball and college football, both at the forefront because brand equals money, and having a bigger brand in the playoff brings you more money. It's no surprise that when Cincinnati is in a playoff game, it's not going to give you near as much juice as Alabama, Ohio State. That's not exactly a matchup that Cincinnati, Alabama, or Cincinnati and Michigan, not a matchup that's going to bring near as many eyeballs. And this is an entire conversation about eyeballs and who can get in to give you the best chance to make money. And with that being at the forefront of this, TV ratings are already a factor. Brand rating is already a factor. It's just the fact that they said it explicitly. Again, they're trying to tell you what they're doing. They are going to include it no matter what, even if it's not in the actual bylaws of how playoff teams are decided. But that's you hit the nail on the head here. This is some sort of ruse, some sort of, so there are smoke and mirrors around this so that you ignore the fact they're actually going to do 4 automatic bids for the SEC, 4 for the Big Ten, and 1 for the Big 12 or 1 for the ACC. That's the root of this. They're going to get what they want from that standpoint while we all talk about the idea that TV ratings are being factored into this.
Yeah, it totally feels like just an absurdity to throw in. I always find it funny when Heather Dinich reports on, sources are telling me, when ESPN, who controls the playoff committee, and she is a reporter for, like, she literally used to work for the ACC, now, because that's a dying conference, works directly reporting on what the college football playoff committee is thinking. It's always funny to me when she says, like, I'm hearing this, or sources are telling me this, like she's not just a paid mouthpiece for them. And then for the Athletic to come out with their article basically confirming everything that she said was pretty interesting. But yeah, I don't think they'll use TV ratings like we're saying, but they will, right? Yeah. They absolutely think of it. They absolutely consider it. It's absolutely part of what they do. They're just not going to tell us, and it will forever be what they do, right? There's no doubt about it. It shocks me that SMU got in last year over Bama. I still continue to be stunned by that. Yeah. But maybe they do get one thing right every once in a while. So
today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is so convenient and a spectacular way to get in on the action, especially this postseason or in season with baseball. That being in full swing, there's no better way to get in on that action than Prize Picks. More or less, that's what you pick on at least 2 player projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts, RBI, or first inning runs, Prize Pick keeps the game exciting. You build a lineup: Aaron Judge for more than a homer, Shohei Ohtani for more than a stolen base, and the setting up takes less than 60 seconds. When you win, your payout is quick, safe, and secure. Taco Tuesday, Prize Picks offers discounts on select player projections to add even more value. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Deion Sanders was in the news last week. Obviously, we didn't even mention this, but with the retiring of jerseys, but then also in the news a little bit, calling out Virginia for tampering, getting all over an ACC team's case for reaching out and trying to tamper with their players. I've got some thoughts on this, but I do want to hear you out first. What's your initial reaction to that?
This was really cool, actually. I love the way which Deion Sanders did it. Video cameras in the room. He asks a player, he's like, hey, somebody tried to tamper with that kid right there. Carter got offered a bag. He said, where Carter at? What's the school? What's the school that offered you the bag? And Carter Stoutmeyer is like, Virginia. And Deion's like, yeah, we said the name of the school. Now what? We're coming for you. Somebody in the back of the video said, we're coming for you. And it was awesome that Sanders looked directly to a camera and said, Virginia, you got to stop. I let you have one. I ain't saying nothing about it. Come on now. Come on. We let you have one. I ain't saying nothing about it. Crazy. He's not filing a report with the NCAA. He's not coming after the university. He's doing something even crazier, utilizing his platform to say, Virginia, which is a terrible football school, by the way, in a dying football conference. What are you doing in my backyard trying to bring my players to your university? Stop. This is your first and final warning. We see coaches say really good coach speaky, stupid stuff at a podium like, oh, there are players that are being targeted on our very roster right now, and they keep it very official, and they don't try to get in any trouble. Deion said, where are the cameras? Virginia wants him. They're tampering. I'm not going to report it. I'm just going to tell the world because I have the biggest platform in college football right now. It's very neat to me the way in which Deion, it's very Deion, the way in which Deion handled this business. But he always handles his business in an eccentric way. I think it's good. It's good for schools to be called out when they're breaking the rules because, TJ, we know how the NCAA operates. They're not going to do anything. If you report Virginia for tampering, it'll be 2028. All the coaches and players will be gone before the NCAA even looks at it. So Deion is just, he's taking care of his own business here. He's making sure that he gets stuff done when the NCAA probably wouldn't. I'm for this. I'm pro calling out Virginia for tampering. Where do you lie?
Yeah, I'm pro Deion calling it out. I like that a lot because we do hear, Matt Rule talking, we're canceling the spring game because this, coach has, we're worried about tampering or worried about this happening, that happening, which I think is stupid, right? I think it's dumb. The whole canceling of spring games because of tampering is absolutely idiotic. But I like the way that this is called out. Now, I will say this. Coach Prime calls out UVA. Let's be very honest. There are 134 schools that are attempting to, or representatives for those schools, or agents for kids, whatever it is. This is happening at every school in the country. There is absolutely no doubt about it. But instead of just sweeping it under the rug and saying like, yeah, some of our guys are getting called, actually put your money where your mouth is. Say like, yeah, this is who called him out. And I like that. I don't see why you wouldn't like it. Now, the haters or the doubters may say, well, you're telling me that Colorado hasn't made any calls to kids that were committed elsewhere, or transfers that hadn't jumped in just yet, or whatever. Yes, you're probably right. I would imagine that Colorado is not the only program out of 134 in this country that is not doing that. But if you're going to do it, to especially Coach Prime's program, you better be ready for the blowback, and you better be ready for being called out on it. And so I have no doubt. Listen, there's a Florida State football sitting over my left shoulder right now. I have a Florida State baseball shirt on. I like Florida State. Florida State is both being tampered with and tampering right now. It is happening everywhere in college football. But you want to know how you get it to stop? You start directly calling out the players that are being tampered with, or the schools that are tampering with certain players. I also think it shows a heck of a lot of trust in the players, and Coach Prime trust each other so much to be open about these things, right? Not just, hey, fielding these calls on the side, seeing what your side chick might be up to over here on the side with UVA or whatever, to literally go to your coach and say, hey, this is what's happening to me. I'm letting you know right now because my loyalty is with you. My loyalty is not with anybody else. I'm coming to tell you so that you're aware of it. You know what's happening with your program, with your roster. It's the same thing as if one of my kids comes to me and says, hey, Dad, my teacher told me to do this and it was wrong. Or my friend at school told me to do this and it was wrong. And so I'm telling you to keep my name clear, to keep myself out of trouble. And so I think it shows both things, right? Coach Prime, not afraid to call people out for doing wrong, also has a trust, because you can guarantee a lot of these kids across the country that are getting tampered with, they go in the portal with a do not contact tag. The fact that even exists is asinine. But they go into the portal with a do not contact tag on because they know where they're going because they've been tampered with. Coach Prime willing to call that out, but also these kids that are getting tampered with all across the country, do you think they're going and telling their coach? Do you think they're going and, I'm not saying none do, but I probably wouldn't, right? I'm going to hear them out. Hey, you're going to give me more money to come play at your school? Yeah, I'm for it. Everybody across the country is doing this. Only one is calling out by name who's getting it done.
It is neat to know that a kid would turn down money. That's probably this likely wasn't an empty offer from Virginia. It's not, hey, what interest do you have in possibly coming and playing here? There was, by all accounts, when a player is reached out to, a price tag is typically there with the message. Otherwise, there is no reason to respond. There is no reason to get into this whole tampering scheme and possibly lose your own eligibility if there isn't a $3 or $4 million payday at the very end of it. The saddest part of the whole deal is that it's Virginia. I mean, kick them while they're down, right? This isn't an Alabama, an LSU, a Florida State, who we know are probably, as you mentioned, tampering or being tampered with. I mean, they have their secret avenues to call the kid's high school strength coach, and that coach will call the kid's dad, and from there, those cats can broker a deal with a third party or a donor at a university. But this isn't a big school. This is Virginia. Virginia's like, hey, man, we're looking for anybody that'll play here. We're just trying to make a call. Could you just leave us alone for a second? And I can't imagine for that football program that has been so bad, just how much more disheveled it looks after a situation like this. You're right, though. It's happening all across college football. I think if it was in Alabama, an LSU, a Florida State, Deion would still call them out in the exact same way. And TJ, as you were saying it, I was thinking, man, I want to push back a bit on the Colorado tampering conversation, but the reason I wouldn't is because Deion, it doesn't have to have anything to do with it. Like there are now NIL sites. I can go on Google and just look up, NIL website, and genuinely, I could Google that right now, and I could look up Sawyer Robertson from Baylor University and pay him $1 million out of my pocket in NIL, and it not be tampering. I could DM today. I could DM Caden Salter, the quarterback for Colorado, and say, Caden, I personally will pay you $2 million to play at Arkansas State next season. That's not tampering. I don't work for Arkansas State. that NIL money is not funneled directly through Arkansas State. They had nothing to do with this. So surely there are Colorado donors doing that right now. They're DMing college athletes, college football players saying, hey, would you come play at Colorado if I was, if I ponied up the money? And that donor probably has a relationship with the director of ops. And that director of ops probably hinted at the fact that he really liked that defensive lineman from Wisconsin. So there are ways to put two and two together. But I don't know if any of these universities have intricate, detailed, Watergate-esque tampering organizations underneath the table. They don't have to, though. All they have to have is this public bag man giving out NIL money, and every university has those. Yeah,
and also we give the universities a hard time, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Virginia's culpability in this. I mean, some of these agents are incredibly dirty, too. And because there's no rules, like LeBron James's agent cannot reach out to 7 other franchises and say, what will you pay LeBron to come there? 1, he's under contract, right? You'd have to request a trade or his contract would have to be up. 2, there are literally anti-tampering rules in effect. And 3, there are contract requirements to where when LeBron's contract is up, I believe next year, the Lakers can pay him more than any other franchise in the country, right? Like in the league. And that's the same in the MLB, MLB, I'm not sure. NFL, NHL, and NBA. If you stay with the team, they can offer you a higher supermax than the team you would go to. It's a provision, it's a clause in the CBA to keep guys from jumping over and over and over and over around like they have in college football. Since there's no rails in college football, if I'm an agent, right, and I'm repping Shador and Travis, well, those aren't good examples because they were never going to leave. But if I'm repping 2 or 3 of the best players in college football, is it not my due diligence to reach out to other collectives, other strength coaches, other whomever, and say, hey, would you like an Arch Manning, right? Would you like an Abdul Carter? I know he's in the NFL now. But would you like those players? What would it cost to get an Arch Manning on your roster? What would it cost to get a DJ Lagway on your roster? And 120 schools are going to say, we could never afford it, right? We have no interest. We have a quarterback or we have no interest. We don't have that kind of budget, whatever. But if somebody replies to me and says, we'll double DJ's salary, am I being a bad agent? Now, is it ethical? I don't know, right? But am I a good agent if I don't take that back to my client and say, hey, Texas A&M said they double your salary? Like, do you want to hear them out? And so we give these programs such a hard time. A lot of these agents are dirty too. Just 100%. It is an absolute chaotic world. And I'm not trying to take culpability away from UVA here because I don't know that was the situation. But a lot of these agents that are repping these kids are in it for themselves. They get paid when the kids transfer because they make more money. So they want it to happen. And in this wild, wild west of college football that we have right now, that is happening a ton.
Yeah, you have some agents charging 20% agent fees. So when a kid signs a $5 million deal, that's a good payday for the agent. So yeah, the more we blame kids, the worse this thing gets because they're not the ones at the forefront of it.